Hello everybody and welcome to my next video. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create those fog cards at a distance over here. Let me just quickly twig them up and turn them off, turn them on. I will show you how you can create this effect and they're animated so you can place them onto your background and give this little nice cloud ideas on the background. And in this video also, we're going to create this volumetric fog here, which is working in real time. And let me show you a few parameters of the fog card and of the volumetric fog. So you can control the volumetric fog, blend different colors of the volumetric fog. You can make it red. For example, let's blend with the color green. Also, you can control the blend between those two colors. There is an opacity. So if you want to have it completely off, or you want very dense fog here, which you're going to see nothing particularly. But let me just tune it down a little bit. So if I tweak a little bit the opacity parameter, now you have this nice little fog in this environment. As you can see, it's pretty nice. And this fog can be local. Right now, this fog is controlled by a cube and it gets the volume of the cube. For example, if you want this fog to be all the way up to the volume of the cube, we have a height parameter, which you can tweak and fill up all the geometry that it needs to have fog, all right? If I tweak it down, the height, tweak it a little bit up, sorry, I can do like that. And of course, if you start scaling your cube, you give the fog more space to have or less space. So the fog basically is taking the boundaries of the cube. So the volumetric fog is pretty awesome and you can use it in all your project over here. And this volumetric fog can be used in games. It is highly optimized and it works pretty well. All right. So the next thing that you can control is the fog cards that I've created at the background. Again, we have a shader for the fog cards at the background. You can control the opacity. Let me show you. Very opaque. You can tweak them. Pretty much invisible. We have a texture here. You can plug whatever texture you want. We have a depth fade parameter, which will start blending between geometries and the fog card over here. We have a few more parameters about styling and offset. You can start style your texture. You can rotate your texture. You can give it a color. For example, I can select here a reddish color. I can select the second color, which will be green, for example. And right now, as you can see, we have a little bit of green and a little bit of red, which is also a control that you can have in your fogs if you want to make it a little bit colorful. We have brightness. Here you can make it brighter. You can make it less brighter. You have contrast from the white and black from your texture. We have a threshold, which will start blending between white and black of your texture. We have an animation. So if I tweak the animation all the way to 1, you can see that we can create this pretty dense animation in our background. So if you have a better texture, a different texture, you can use the animation. Also, we have an emissive strength, which will boost up the emissive channel in our texture. So if you want to have this volumetric fog and this fog card in your arsenal of game development shaders, stay with me until the end of this video and make them your own powerful tools. Alright everybody, so let's start creating those shaders. But before we start creating the shader, I want to make a few announcements. First, I want to tell you about my in-depth course of Unreal Engine 5 Blueprint system. The course itself is 14 hours long and we will start with the basics, advancing slowly into more complex stuff. By the end of this course, you will be able to create games without a single line of code. The course itself is published on Udemy and you can find a link to the course in the description of this video. If you watched my previous video, you already know that my channel is demonetized, so I've decided to switch to Patreon. If you don't have the time to spend the next 2 hours with me creating this shader, you can simply go to my Patreon page and for $4.99 you'll be able to download the complete shader. By becoming a Patreon member, you'll support me and this channel to keep evolving, to keep creating more and more interesting videos. Besides that, you have access to all the files that I've created from the start of my YouTube channel. So right now you can download the water shader, you can download the auto material from my previous video. If you didn't watch it, go and watch it. And you can have access to more in-depth videos about how the things work, like the auto material, the water shader, and a few more videos. And also you will have access to a VIP Discord server only dedicated to my Patreon members, where I am active most of the time. So if you want to support the growth of this channel and if you want to see more and more videos like this, go to my Patreon page, enroll now, and also you will have access to everything that I'm creating. Thanks everyone. All right, everybody. So starting off with our first material function, I'm going to right click over here, go to my materials and select material function. The first material function will be a chaos, which will move our texture. I've previously created chaos functions in my previous videos. So let's start mf chaos. All right, I'm just going to double click on it. Let me move it onto the screen. And the first thing that we need to start with is we need texture coordinates. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to search for texture coordinates, this one. And this texture coordinates will hold 0, 1, 1. This is the default value that we are going to hold. The next thing is we need a function input. And this function input should be a vector too, because our texture coordinate are working in the UV space. So we have a two-dimensional coordinate system. And that's why we are using vector 2. All right. Here I'm gonna name this UVs, as this will be the input for my UVs. And I'm gonna set the priority to 1 and click here to use the preview values. All right. I'm gonna connect my texture coordinate to my input UVs vector 2. Moving further, I need to create a vector 2. So I'm gonna search for vector 2. And I'm gonna create a constant 2 vector. And this constant 2 vector will hold values 0.4, 0.35. All right, and this will be need to create an add node after it. So I'm going to create an add node and I'm going to connect the values over here to A. For the B values, I'm going to get them from my vector 2, but I want this to be clean. So I'm going to reroute, add reroute node, and I'm going to name it UVs vector 2. All right. So by rerouting, right now I'm gonna go to my name reroutes and I'm gonna connect it to B. So I have cleaner graphs. All right, make them like that. Move it a little bit like that. The next step is I need to duplicate this one more time, and the connections will be the same. And I need to put for the values 0.86, and here I'm gonna put 0.40. So 0.14 and 0.86 again to an add node. After that, I will need one more duplication of this node. And this node will hold different values, so 0.64, 0.75. And the same settings. The UV vector will be to B, and this vector 2 will be connected to my A. So moving further, we need a time node in order for us to play the textures, and we need to multiply it and create a speed scour parameter. All right. So I'm going to right click and search for time node, and this time node will go to a multiplication node. So in A, I'm going to hook up the time. And for the next one, I'm going to search for function input. And this time the function input will be a scour. This scour, I'm going to name it speed. So here from this node, we are going to control the speed, use preview values, and I'm going to set the priority to 2. Remember that this was 1, connected to my multiplier over here. And this node will control the speed of our texture, all right? And what we need to do over here is we need to create different panners, all right? So let me just move this a little bit here. So I'm going to search for panner. And this panner, if you watched all my videos in YouTube, I've worked with this panner. It moves the textures based on coordinates and time, all right? So for the time, I'm going to connect my multiplication node over here. And for coordinates, I'm going to get the first add node over here. And I'm going to clean up my graph. Let's start cleaning up everything. So this will be my first spanner. And also I need to set up the speed of this spanner, all right? So the speed of this spanner will be negative 0.1. So negative 0.1. And I'm going to put for y coordinates the same. Of course, you can promote a variable here if you want to control this spanner coordinates of the speed. So now what we need to do is we need to create one more panner and do the same, connect the time over here. Just need to align them and connect the multiplication node. I'm just going to move it like that to the coordinate system. All right. Just going to make it like that to be a little bit more clean, because I like my nodes to be aligned perfectly and to be clean in order for you guys to be able to read them correctly. All right. And for the final one, we need to duplicate again this panel, connect my multiplication node over here, and connect the odd nodes to my time. I'm gonna align them too. And right now, everything is readable. You can see pretty much the connection is good. I'm just gonna move this a little bit like that. Shift A, and maybe I'm gonna make it like connections like this. So they are more readable. And this one will have connection like this. All right, looking good. So now we are ready with the panels and we need to move further. Now we will create texture objects and texture samples. So I'm going to right click and search for texture object. And this will be my texture object. I'm going to leave everything to default. The next one is we need to create a function input, which will be with an input name texture. So here we're going to input the texture and it will be texture 2D. All right, I'm going to connect my texture to my texture input and the priority will be 0. All right, I'm going to minimize this, move it like that. And from here, we're going to create 4 texture samplers. So I'm going to right click texture sampler. I'm going to move it a little bit up. So right now we have 3 panels. And what I need to do is I want to create one more panel and I'm going to duplicate this one. In this panel, we'll hold coordinate for speed positive of 1. And I'm going to connect my multiplication also to the time. I'm going to clean it up like that. I'm going to push this a little bit backwards so we can have this clean connection. And for the coordinate, I'm just going to connect again the UV vector 2. UV vector 2 goes to my coordinate. Let's align everything. And I'm going to make a few fixes over here. So for my third panel, I'm going to use positive for Y. And for my fourth panel, I'm going to use positive for X. All right, so those fixes needed to be done. And now let's continue on with our texture sampler. And the first texture sampler will hold the texture over here. So I'm going to connect the texture that we've created. And I'm going to connect the first panel to the UV. So the panel can control the UVs of this texture sampler. All right. And the next thing that I need here to create is I need to have the liner color. So I'm just selecting the sample type linear color over here. And I'm just going to duplicate this texture sampler one more time. And I'm going to connect my panel number 2 over here. I'm going to clean the connection like that and connect the texture input over here. All right. Moving further is to duplicate this 2 more times. So I'm going to select this one, duplicate it, connect the coordinates over here to the UVs and connect my texture to my texture slot. I'm going to duplicate this one more time, the same connections, UVs from the fourth, Shift A in order for us to align everything. Everything looks pretty clean, but I want to clean them a little bit more. So I'm going to have these connections a little bit better, like that. Move it a little bit further like that. And this one is crossing the other one. So this looks good. So we are ready with our texture samplers. And now I need to combine my first and my second group of texture samplers. So I'm going to add node over here. I'm going to connect it over here and over there. And I'm going to duplicate this one more time. Connect it over here, connect it over there. And now I need to duplicate this add node one more time and connect it to create it. All right. And I'm going to add a multiply node over here. And I'm going to multiply everything in A. And I'm just going to put a value. So holding 1 on my keyboard, I'm adding a value. And I'm multiplying by 25, 0.25. And everything will be connected to my output over here. Now go to save and apply. When we save, we had 2 errors over here. And how I need to fix them? I just made a mistake to connect the time node to my coordinates. My time node should go into my time over here, and this should go into the coordinates. So this is a mistake that I've made, and you need to correct it. So I'm just correcting it pretty quickly. Let's align everything from here to here without this one. Thank you. And let's align those. I'm just gonna delete this connection node. I'm just gonna select those two, this one and this Q on my keyboard, just to align them properly. And now I'm gonna clean the connections again, and the error should be gone. All right, everything looks good. And finally, right now, the texture is not animated. And what you need to do is you need to go to the speed and just add some speed to it from the x-axis. So I'm going to put 1. And now you see that our clouds are moving. So this material function chaos will work with our clouds movement. And we're pretty much done with it. Let me just maybe clean this up like that. Just finish up everything. So everything looks good. The connections are fine. And now we're gonna save and apply. So we've created our MF chaos, and the next one, the next material function that we need to create is our material function adjustable UVs. So I'm gonna go to material function, MF adjustable UVs. All right. I'm gonna double click on it, move it over my screen. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to control the scale and the offset of these adjustable UVs. Starting out with a texture coordinate. And everything here will be by default. And the next one is we need to create a function input vector 2. Function input, which will be a vector 2. I'm going to connect it over here. It is vector 2 because we are working in two-dimensional space, which is u coordinate and v coordinate. Now on the vector 2, what we need to do is we need to give it a name. So I'm going to give it a name UVs. It will be function vector 2. I'm going to check the use preview value. And for the sort priority, I'm going to hold up with 0. The next thing is I'm going to multiply this node. And I'm going to multiply it with another vector, which will be a vector 4. So I'm going to right click function input. And this time I'm going to choose vector 4. And this vector 4 will hold the priority of 1, and the preview value will be 1, 1, 0, 0 for the alpha 2. I'm gonna click use preview value, and this will control my tiling and offset. Right, so this will control the tiling and offset of our adjustables UVs. So from this vector 4, I need to split the masks to RG and blue and alpha channel. So I'm gonna go for and search for component mask. And the first one is I'm gonna split to only the red and green channel. And the second one will be split to my blue channel and my alpha channel, right? Shift A for me in order to align them. And my red and green channel will go to the multiplication node with my texture coordinate. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit like that. And my mask B, which is the blue channel and the alpha channel, I'm gonna add together with this multiplication node. So I'm gonna add it over here. And so I'm gonna clean it up a little bit like that. And like that. All right, looking good. So this block will control my scale and offset. Now the next block that we need to create is to control the rotation. But before that, I want to reroute my mask blue and alpha channel, my red and green channel, and my add in order for me to have a clean connections. So I'm going to reroute and I'm going to name this add. So this will be from my add node. From here, I'm going to reroute and I'm going to name it mask RG, the same as this one. And from here, I'm going to reroute and I'm going to name it mask blue and alpha channel. All right. Pretty decent. So let's continue on. The first thing for my second block to control the rotation is we need a function input. And this function input should be a vector 3 with the values of 0, 0.5, 0.51. And this will control my rotation. So this will control the rotation of my UVs. I'm going to set the priority of 2. And from here, I'm going to start masking out. So I'm going to choose component mask. I'm going to move this output over here because we need space. And the first mask that I want to mask out is the green channel. And I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to mask here the blue channel. All right. And the next one is I'm going to mask the red channel over here. So I'm going to shift align them, and I'm going to connect my vector tree to each of the masks like that. All right. So we've masked the blue channel, the red channel, and the green channel. And from here, we're going to start doing some magic. And the first block that we need to do is we're going to append the green and the blue channel. So I'm going to search for append vector, and I'm going to append the green channel in A and my blue channel in B. All right. The next thing is I'm going to multiply. And from this multiplication node in the A, I'm going to connect the append. And here I'm going to connect my red and green reroute. So red and green reroute go to my B. All right. From my R mask, I'm going to multiply here at A. And for the B, I'm going to put -1. Then I'm going to divide, and I'm going to connect to A, and I'm going to divide by 360 because we are rotating our UVs and the maximum rotation is 360. Let me just align everything to this axis. Then when we divide, I'm going to add a cosine over here, connect to my divide, and I'm going to add a sine. So those are mathematical operations if you learn math in school. And from the cosine and sine, I'm going to append again. So I'm appending those two, connecting here and here to this append. And from this append, let's finish up a little bit on the top. Here, I'm going to add a node over here, and I'm going to add my blue and alpha channel to my red and green channel. See how useful are the reroutes over here? And then from here, I'm going to multiply. I'm going to multiply the add node, and I'm going to multiply with a value. So I'm holding 1 on my keyboard, and for the value, I'm multiplying by -1 and connecting my -1 to B over here. Let me align this. All right, so far so good. From here, I'm going to create an add node, and I'm going to add my multiplication to my add node, and we reroute the add from the masks previously, and I'm going to connect it to my B channel over here. All right. And from here, I'm going to do the same for my sine and cosine. So I'm going to duplicate my multiplication over here with the value of 1. I'm going to move it maybe like that. And I'm going to connect sine over here. Move it like that. So right now we have the multiplications and the add node done. The next step is we need to add a dot product. So I'm going to add dot product. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my append over here to my B channel in the dot product. I'm going to align everything to look a little bit better. Let me select this and make it like that. And for the A channel, I'm going to connect my add node over here. And again, I'm going to clean up this mess like that. Okay. What I need to do is I'm going to duplicate this dot product one more time. I'm going to connect the add node over here. And I need to connect my multiplication to another append. So I'm going to append vector, and I'm going to append my multiplication here. It should be in B this time. Let me just disconnect this one. And I want to connect it with my cosine over here. So my cosine should be the A value, and my multiplication should be my B value. In this dot, I'm going to move it like that and connect my append over here. All right. And finally, we need to append the two dots. So I'm going to append them, append vector, move it like this. And I'm going to append the first dot to A and this one to B, just like that. Let me just clean it up a little bit. And when we append those two, what we need to do is we need to add it over here to this add. So I'm going to add node, and this will go into my B. All right. And this will connect to my output. And I'm going to add from this node over here. All right. And I'm going to move it a little bit up like that. I'm going to clean this connection. I'm going to save. All right. So this is pretty much the two blocks that we need to create. I'm just going to align them like that. Or maybe this will go underneath. And we are pretty much done with our MF adjustable UVs. All right, so we've created the material functions, the two material functions, the adjust UVs and the material function chaos. And now let's create our fog card. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to my material. I'm going to select material. I'm going to name it mat for material. And I'm going to name it fog card. So let's start creating the fog card itself. I'm just going to move this over here. So the first thing that we need is constant vector force. So I'm going to search for constant for vector, this one. And right now it is not a parameter. So I need to convert it to parameter. Right click, convert to parameter. And I'm going to name this parameter. This will control our tiling and offset of our fog card. So tiling and offset. So this will control the textures of the fog card, the tiling and offset. So for the R and G, I'm going to put 1 and here 1 again for the green channel. And I'm just going to rename my channel. So here you can rename these channels from RGBA. Here, if you go to parameter customization, and I'm going to rename them. So because we are tiling and offset a UV map, which is in X and Y coordinate system, and in this case in U and V. So I'm going to name it tiling U. And the second one will control my tiling V. And the next one will control the offset of my U. And the A, which is the alpha, will control the offset of V. I'm just setting up those so we can have the default values. And when we start tweaking them up, those are very describable. All right. The next thing that we need to group over here is we need to put a group texture. So this will control our texture. And for sort priority, I'm going to put number 1. All right. So we are pretty much done with this first vector 4 parameter. And right now what I want to do is I'm going to search for append node. So append vector, this one. And I'm going to connect my offset V to B and the primary connection to my A. I'm going to queue them, but let me just align them like that. All right. The next step is we need to add our material function, which is adjust UVs, and place it over here. Okay. And from here, I want to connect my append node to tiling and offset because we are controlling the tiling and offset from here. And I want to duplicate this tiling and offset. And I want to make a rotation. So this will control the rotation. All right. And I'm going to put 0 and 0 for my tiling U and V. And this sort priority will go to 2. And I'm going to rename the channels over here because we are controlling the rotation of our texture. So the first one will control the angle. The second one will control the anchor point of U axis. So I'm going to name it anchor U axis. The third one, which is the B channel, will control the anchor of the V axis. And I'm not going to use my alpha channel, so I'm going to leave it to blank and I'm going to keep it like A. All right. All right, so we've done that and I'm going to connect my output to my rotation over here. Okay, now the next thing is, of course, to align everything to look good. And the next thing is I need to add my MF chaos. So I'm going to drag and drop my MF chaos, the material function. And this MF chaos, for the UVs, I'm going to connect my adjustable UVs because we are controlling my adjustable UVs over here and we are adding it to the chaos. And the next thing that we need is texture object over here. So I'm going to search for texture object parameter, this one, and I'm going to name it texture. And this will be my cloud texture, the clouds that I'm going to use for my fog material. I'm going to name it texture. And I'm going to put a sort priority of 0 because I want this to be the first one. And I'm going to connect it to my texture. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my textures and I have one simple cloud texture. Of course, you can Google search and get a lot of those textures or just create few from Photoshop. And I'm going to connect it over here into my texture slot. All right. All right, moving further, we need to connect our speed. So I'm going to create a scour parameter, and I'm going to name this parameter anim speed, which will control the animation speed of the clouds. For the default value, I'm going to put 0.3. For the slider max and min, I'm gonna keep 0 at minimum. So it can be like there is no animation, and slider max will be 1. For the group, I'm gonna put texture. And for the sort priority, I'm gonna put a priority of 9. And right now, this node will go into my speed slot over here, all right? So we start creating some functions over here. Now, after the chaos, we need to multiply our chaos. So I'm gonna put the multiplication in A. I'm gonna clean it a little bit. And right now, I need to control the brightness of our clouds. So in order to control the brightness of our clouds of the fog, I'm gonna need, again, a parameter. So I'm gonna duplicate this one, and I'm gonna rename it brightness. And here the brightness will be 0 by default, and my slider max, I'm gonna put 4 for it. I'm gonna keep texture, and sort priority will be number 5, all right? I'm gonna move it like that, and I'm gonna connect it to an add node over here, and I want to add 1 to it, all right? And I'm gonna connect it to B. So with this slider, with this node over here, with this color parameter, we're going to control the brightness of our fog clouds. Just going to clean up this a little bit. Moving further, we need to control the contrast of our clouds. So I'm going to lerp here. And in lerp, I'm going to connect my multiply node over here to my alpha. And I'm going to duplicate this parameter, and I'm going to create one more, which I'm going to call contrast. And the contrast will hold 004 of values, and I'm just gonna change the sort priority to 6, all right? Now we need to make some add functions. So I'm gonna add first over here, and I'm going to add here 1, and I'm gonna create a subtract node, subtract, and I'm gonna subtract by 0 over here. I'm gonna connect it over here, and I'm gonna subtract by 0. And then I'm gonna append the subtract, append vector, this one. And I'm gonna connect A and B over here. Let me just align this like that, Shift Q. And from here, I'm gonna append one more time the append node. I'm gonna append this one, and I'm gonna append again the subtract, just like that. Let me just clean it up a little bit. All right. And from here, I'm gonna add this append to my A in the lerp, and I'm gonna connect this add to my B. All right. So now we have also control of our contrast. All right, pretty cool. I'm just gonna clean up this mess over here, just like that. Now the next thing is we need to control a little bit the color. So I'm gonna add a saturation node, and I'm gonna connect it over here to the saturation. And I want to add a vector 4 parameter. This one, the constant vector 4. And I'm gonna right click and convert to parameter. So the first parameter will be color 2, color number 2. And I'm gonna put everything to 0. It will hold the texture group and the sort priority of 4. So this will control the texture color, all right? And I'm gonna duplicate this one because I want to mix two colors. So I'm gonna have color number 1. And for the second one, I'm gonna put 111. And now so we have RGB 111. And I'm gonna put the group texture to texture, and sort priority will be number 3, all right? From here, we need another lerp. So in this lerp, I'm gonna connect color 2 to A, color 1 will go to B, and my saturation will go to alpha. All right, I'm just gonna move it like that, and I'm gonna clean it up a little bit to look better, okay? And from here, we're gonna add power threshold and emissive strength. So I'm gonna search for power. And here from the power base, I'm gonna put the lerp over here. And for the other one, I wanna have a parameter. So I'm gonna duplicate this one, and I'm gonna name this threshold. Threshold, all right. For default value, I'm gonna put 1, and for the slider max, I'm gonna put 10 for my threshold of the power. I'm going to keep it under texture, and sort priority will be number 7. So this will control the amount of the texture that is visible in an image. So a higher threshold will result in less texture, and lower will result in more texture. So let's connect it to the exposure. And from this power, I'm going to multiply over here, and I'm going to connect it to A. And I'm going to create one more parameter. I'm going to duplicate this one. Let's just move it like that. And I'm going to connect it to B, Q. And this one will be my emissive strength. All right. And I'm going to hold 0, 0, 10. And this will be sort priority of 10. This will control the texture emissive strength. All right. And the next step is to connect my emissive strength over here to my emissive color. But when we connect it over here, we see that our material blend mode is opaque and we need to change it to additive. All right. Additive is kind of transparent and we need to select two-sided, because if you're placing this on a plane and doesn't select two-sided, it will be visible only from the one side of your 3D plane. All right, so now we have our emissive color connected, and from here, from the base, I want to reroute. As you know, I use reroutes a lot, and I'm gonna name it fog output. All right. And this reroute I'm going to connect to my base color. And now this fog output, we're going to use it to control the position offset of our fog card. So I'm going to search for my fog output. And we're going to start multiplying this fog output over here. And I'm going to search for vertex normal VS. Vertex normal VS. And I'm going to connect it to the multiply. We're going to control right now the position offset of the fog card, and I'm going to multiply once more, connect it over here. And the first parameter that we need to control the offset, the position offset, I'm going to duplicate this parameter, will be my offset strength. So not emissive, but offset strength. All right. It will hold like default value of 10, and maybe slider max will be 100. The sort priority will be 1, and I'm going to create a new group which will be position offset. This one, position offset. All right. And I'm going to connect this value to my multiplication over here. So, all right, we've created this. And the next one is we need a static switch parameter, which will tell us do we need to offset or not. So static switch parameter. And I'm going to name this, I'm going to name the static switch parameter position offset on, off. So turning it on or off. By default, it will be off. And if it's on, it will be true. And we're going to start offsetting our fog texture. And if it's false, I'm holding 1 on my keyboard and putting just a default value of 0. All right. And this position offset will go to my world position offset. Cool. So from here, we're going to control the offset of our fog cards. All right. Pretty cool. Let me just move and clean up everything. And the final thing that left for us is our opacity. So what it needs to create is an opacity mask. I'm just going to move this one a little bit down because I want to create the opacity mask over here. So for the opacity mask, we need a texture sampler parameter. Texture sampler parameter 2D, this one. And I'm going to name it opacity mask. This will be the mask of our opacity. And the group will be opacity. And I'm going to put sort priority of 0. So it will be the first one. And I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to minimize. And here I have a mask of our clouds. I'm just going to put it over here. It will start masking the edges over here, and this will be the visible area. You can create any mask in Photoshop, so keep in mind that the white is visible, black is invisible. All right, this is how this mask is working on. White means visible, black means invisible. So for example, if you want your clouds here in the center to not be visible, just paint over the mask over here with black, and they will not be visible. So from here, I need a depth fade. And for the opacity, I'm going to connect the RGB. I'm going to Q. And for my fade distance, I need a parameter. So I'm going to duplicate this one, move it like that, connect it over here to my fade distance. And I'm going to name this depth fade. All right. I'm going to put 0, 0, and I'm going to put 4000 for my scale or max. I'm going to select my opacity layer, and this will hold 2. All right. So from here, we're going to control the depth fade distance for the fog. All right. And right now, I'm just going to move this a little bit back. And I need to create one more parameter, which will control the opacity itself. So this parameter, I'm going to call opacity. And it will hold one value, so it will be visible by default, and the slider max will be 1. If you start tweaking the value all the way down to 0, it will start fading out your cloud. All right. So I'm going to put soft priority of 1, and I'm going to multiply my depth fade mask and my opacity over here. Cool. And everything from the multiplication node will go to my opacity over here. Now I'm just going to rearrange a little bit. Shift Q this one, Shift Q this one. And our material fog card is ready. I'm gonna save right now and see my fog card is looking pretty good. Alright guys, so we are ready with the material fog card, and right now let's test this out. It's already done. So I'm gonna right click on this one and I'm gonna create a material instance and I'm gonna name it MI for material instance fog card. All right. So this is the fog card that we are going to tweak. And let me show you the parameters over here. We have the position offset on and off. We have the opacity mask. We have opacity, depth fade. We have the texture, rotation, different colors, brightness, contrast, threshold, animation speed, and an emissive strength. Right. So the first step that you need to do is you need to create a plane. So I'm going to go here in the shapes and select the plane. So this is a normal 3D plane, and onto this plane I'm gonna drag and drop my fog card. And right now if I zoom in a little bit, you can see a little bit of clouds over here. So let's start tweaking up the parameters. So first I have the brightness, and I'm gonna put a little brightness over here so we can see the clouds. Let me try with 3. It looks better. And let me tweak up the contrast. Here from the contrast you can tweak up the contrast itself into the texture. So a little bit contrasty or full contrast by 4. So I'm gonna put 0.3, 0.2, right? Let me tweak up the brightness a little bit more. The next step is threshold. So with the threshold, you can change how much of this black and white is visible. So by doing the threshold, I'm just isolating part of the most white in our texture, right? So I'm just gonna do a threshold of 5 over here, all right? So we can see them pretty good. Here you can see that our clouds are animated, and by tweaking the animation speed, we can speed up the cloud animation, or we can stop it completely. For example, if you want to use this at a static position, at maybe a background, or you want to move it just slightly, you can put 0.1. And you can see here that our clouds are moving. All right. So from the animation speed, we can tweak up this thing. And from the emission, we can boost up the emissive color over here. So let's boost it up a little bit like that. The next thing are the colors. And from the color parameters, we can change the foreground of our clouds. Let's say we have a green clouds. And the secondary color is like a color on the background. So we are doing a little bit of bluish over here. Something like that. All right, looks good. The next thing is our rotation, from which we can expand and start rotating our clouds. Let's say 50 by 50. And let's try with angle 20, 10, 20. You can see how we rotated it. And this is the axis on the anchor from which we are starting to rotate, right? The alpha is not doing anything as it is an empty channel. Then we go to the tiling and offset. You can tile your texture pretty much however you like. Let me show you bigger clouds over here. If you want smaller, to tile it a little bit more, you can put 20, for example. So from here, you can control the tiling and also the offset. How offset the clouds you want to be. All right. So I'm going to leave it 1 to 1. Here from texture, you can put whatever you like over here, different cloud textures. You can download pretty much a lot of cloud textures through just a simple Google search. The next thing is the depth fade, which is pretty cool. And right now, as you can see, our clouds are interfering here with the ground pretty sharp. Let me just turn off this. So right now it's not looking good. And what depth fade does is it will smooth out this connection. So when we start intercepting with a geometry, we start having this pretty nice fading. You can tweak it all the way up to here, all right? So you can have this pretty nice, good looking fading. Of course, you can make them like that, put them like that. You can choose whatever you like texture. And here it is fading everything and everything looks pretty good. The next is opacity. From opacity, you can tweak up how the opacity mask will work. So all the way to 1 is full opaque, all the way to 0 is full transparent, all right? So you can play with this one. The next step is opacity mask. Here, this is just a simple mask. The white means visible, black means invisible. So you can create this mask however you need in Photoshop or any other 2D application. For example, if I put these clouds, it will start masking out all the whites. Let me just show you. All the whites will be visible and the black spot will be invisible. As you can see here, we have these white spots at the edge and the black are invisible right now. All right, so this is how this opacity mask works. I'm just going to put this one over here. You can create whatever you want. The next is our position offset on and off. You can change the offset of our clouds based on our geometry. So our geometry is right here, but we can move them from out our geometry. All right, so we can offset them a little bit. So this is pretty optimized way to create clouds for games. And they can be pretty handy to use in your game project. So this is the first thing that we've created, our fog card. All right, guys, so pretty good. We right now have our fog cards where we can use and place across our level. And one more thing that I want to create over here with this fog card shader is I want to create a volumetric fog, which you can use, for example, for a low fog. For example, when your character is walking and you have this mystical down fog. So let's start creating one more material. So I'm gonna go to my material, and I'm gonna name it material, and I'm gonna put volumetric fog. Volumetric fog, all right? The first thing that our volumetric fog material should have is we need to change the blend modes to additive. So we want it to blend very good. And the next material domain should be volume because we're aiming the volume of, for example, a cube, all right? So let's start creating this volumetric fog shader. The first thing that we need is world position. So I'm going to search for world position, all right, which will be absolute world position. And from this absolute world position, we want transform position. Transform position. And this transform position should be for the source, we need absolute world space, all right, because we have the absolute world position and we need the source to be the world space. So we need to get the space of the world, not the local space, for example, of the character or the object that we are applying this shader to. And the destination should be the local space, this one. So source, absolute world space, because we are aiming for the world space, and the destination is our local space. From this, I'm gonna right click and search for subtract. And in the subtract, I'm gonna connect this to my A. So for B, we want a custom expression. So I'm gonna right click and search for custom. And here, the custom, I'm going to connect it to B over here. And for the output type, I'm gonna leave it to float3. And from the description, I'm gonna say that this will be our local bounds. All right. For the inputs, I'm gonna remove them. And for additional outputs, I'm gonna hit plus. I'm gonna open it. And the first one will be the size of my bounds. And the second one will be a float3, just like that. All right. So we're gonna have our float3 and our size bounds. Our float3 will return to the subtract, and our size bounds will go to a divide node. So we're gonna connect this subtract, and I'm gonna connect this B. All right, so in this local bounds, here we can put material expression code. So I just wrote this code. So our size of the bounds will get the primitive data parameter which will be our local object bounce maximum XYZ because we are working in 3 dimension. And then I'm going to subtract the bounce of the minimum in XYZ, right? Then I'm going to return the result. So I'm going to copy and paste this one over here. And I'm going to hit save. So from this divide, we are going to search for distance. I'm going to right click distance. I'm going to search it under utility. And I'm going to connect my divide to A, to the distance. And for the B, I'm going to give a value. So I'm holding 1 on my keyboard, left clicking, and giving a value of 0.5. All right, so we can start with this distance. I'm going to cue this to align it. Right now, our graph is clean, readable. Let's continue on. So from this division, I need to mask. So I'm going to search for component mask, and I'm going to mask only the B channel, all right? So I'm masking the B channel, and I'm going to get this divide to my mask over here. The next step is we need to multiply the mask by height. So I'm going to multiply. My mask will go to B, and I'm going to create a parameter. So I'm going to right click and search for scalar parameter. Scalar parameter. I'm going to put the name for this parameter height. Right? All right. And the height will start with default value of 1.5, and the slider max will be 3. I'm going to put this group to volumetric fog. Volumetric fog, and the priority will be 5 for this one. This will control the fog height, all right? And I'm going to connect it to my multiply over here to A. I'm going to shift A over here. I'm going to select those two, shift A, in order for me to align them. And the next step is from this multiply, I'm going to drag and drop, and I'm going to reroute. I'm going to create this reroute, and I'm going to name it fog mask. Fog mask, all right? So we can use this multiplication later on. From the distance, I'm going to multiply once more. I'm going to connect it to A. And for the B, I'm going to use a subtract. So I'm holding right click, subtract, all right? Subtract will be connected to my B channel over here. And for the A, I'm going to put 2. And for the B, I'm going to create a parameter. So I'm just duplicating this parameter, connecting it to B, and I'm going to rename it, which will be the hardness of our fog. All right. And it will start by default with 1. So it will be the maximum value. The slider max will be 1. It will hold the volumetric fog group, and the priority will be 6 above our height. So I'm going to align this like that. Maybe just a little bit like that. Q. All right. So we've done some things, some cool things over here. So from this multiply node, I want 1 minus. So I want to reverse it. Connect to 1 minus. I'm going to shift A to align everything. And from this 1 minus, I'm going to multiply over here. And this will go to B. I'm just going to move the material over here. I'm going to make it like that because we're going to create more connections. Let me just clean it up like that. And from this multiplication, I'm going to multiply one more time. And this time I'm going to multiply by 4. Then I'm going to multiply one more time. But this time I'm going to create a parameter which will control the opacity. So I'm just duplicating this one, connecting to B. And I'm going to name it opacity. This will control the opacity of the fog. So I'm going to put 1, 1. It's going to be a volumetric fog. And this will be 2. All right. So from this parameter, we are going to control the fog opacity. And finally, from this multiply node, I'm going to connect it to extinction. All right. So we are ready with the first node creation for our volumetric fog, which will control the fog boundaries. Now let's move further and create our texture. So again, I'm going to start with absolute world position. So I'm going to duplicate this one over here. And from this absolute world position, I'm going to use the transform position again. So I'm duplicating this one too. I'm going to connect them and align them. The next step is we need to add component mask, because we want to only have our RG channel without B and alpha. And the next step is to divide. I'm going to divide everything over here by 100. And this division, I'm going to multiply it And this multiplication node will be holding a parameter. Let me duplicate this parameter over here. And this parameter will be our texture size. Texture size. So we are creating our textures and we need to control the size of the texture. The default value will be 1, so our texture will have a default size of 1, and the slider maximum will be 10. This will hold the volumetric fog group, and the sort priority will be 3. So this is controlling the size of our texture. I'm going to connect it to the multiplication node over here. And from this multiply, we're going to need to create animation in our texture with panner. So I'm going to choose one panner over here. And I'm going to connect the multiply node over here to coordinates because we are using the texture size in order for us to establish the coordinates and the world position. All right. The first thing for the panner is I need to create a constant vector 2. Constant vector 2. All right. So this will create the animation. I'm going to put for x minus 0.4 and for y minus 0.41. All right, something like this. And this should be multiplied with animation speed. So I'm going to create one more parameter. I'm duplicating this texture size, putting it over here, and calling this animation speed. Animation speed. All right. I'm going to connect it to my B. And the default value will be 0.1 and the maximum will be 1, which will be 100%. So again, I'm going to leave it volumetric fog, sort priority of 4. Keep in mind that this will control the animation speed of the texture, all right? And this multiplication node will go to the speed slot over here for us in order to control the speed, all right? So we're going to have to create one more panner. So I'm going to connect it again to the coordinate system. And I'm just going to duplicate this thing, put it right here. And this multiplication node will go to the speed section. And for the animation speed, everything will be left like that. So next thing, we need a texture sampler 2D parameter, texture sampler 2D. All right. And I'm going to name it texture. Okay. This coordinate will go to the UVs over here. And now for the group, I'm going to choose volumetric fog. And for the texture, I'm going to put 0. This will control the texture. So what texture you're going to plug in. All right. I'm just going to scroll down and I'm just going to use my texture over here. My textures are just a sample. So you need to get some textures from Google, for example. And my sample type will be alpha. All right. So I'm going to use the alpha from this texture, the transparency. And I want to create one more texture parameter. So I'm going to duplicate this one, move it all the way down. And I'm going to connect to my UVs over here. Shift A in order for me to align them. And also the second one will be alpha. All right, so the next one that we need is inverse our linear interpolation. So I'm going to right click, inverse our linear interpolation, this one, this mathematical function. And I'm going to connect the R channel to B. I'm going to Q to align them. And for the value, I'm going to use my fog mask. So I'm going to use the reroute over here that we've created. And for the value, I'm going to use the fog mask. The next is I need to saturate a little bit this texture. Saturate. I'm going to connect this linear inverse interpolation to my saturate. Then I'm going to 1 minus. Connect my 1 minus over here. Pretty good. I'm going to do the same for the first texture. I'm going to duplicate here. Red channel will go to my B. And here for the value, I'm going to connect this 1 minus so we can control the value from here. Let me just move that a little bit back, a little bit up like that, and move this a little bit like that. All right, so we can have a cleaner graph. So from this inverse linear interpolation, we're going to reroute again, reroute, and this will be our fog texture. This reroute will work for the next batch of material expressions that we need to create. All right, so here for the multiply node, we're going to connect the 1 minus, and I'm going to clean up a little bit the connections over here. All right, so we're pretty much done with our texture logic over here. So we have this texture logic. So right now I have an error over here as my cloud 1 texture is not having an alpha channel. So I'm going to plug this cloud 2 alpha channels that I've created. So here in the texture settings, what you need to do is you need to choose the compression settings to be alpha. So when you select alpha, for example, right now I'm selecting the default, and when you go and select alpha, it's not going to work. It will give you a error that the sample type should be linear color for this alpha texture, not alpha. But in order for you to fix this, you need to change the compression type to alpha, then save it on the current texture. I can do this on my cloud one, but I'm gonna keep it as a default, and this will be with a compression settings alpha. And right now, when I start connecting my textures over here, let me just drag and drop it. It says alpha. The error is not there, and everything looks good. All right, so this is something that you should keep in mind, that if you have different type of errors, like it needs to be alpha for you, but it's flagged as textures, from here you can change the different type of texture. You can change the to be a mask, to be a normal map, to use default, to be HDR, etc. All right, so this is something that you should know. And let's do the final thing, which will be for our volumetric fog. We need to control the color of the fog. So the first thing is I want to create a blend parameter. So I'm going to duplicate this one, and I'm going to name this one a blend, which will start blending my color with the original texture, right? And I'm going to put default value of 0.5 and for slider maximum 5. And this will hold a new group, which will be color. This will control the color of the fog, all right? How it should blend with the texture. Okay, so we are ready with the blend. I'm gonna subtract. And from what you will subtract? Of course, you're gonna subtract from the fog texture, because we want to change and blend the color of the texture and the color that we are going to assign. So I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna choose fog texture, connect it over here, Shift A. All right, this is the first step. Then I'm gonna do another additional subtract. I'm gonna connect it over here to A, and I'm gonna subtract by 1. All right, and what I need to do over here is I'm gonna need to create a lerp. All right, and this lerp will hold two different colors. So the first one will be a constant 4 vector, and I'm gonna right click, convert to parameter, and this parameter will be my color 1. Color, let's say color 1. And for my color 1, I'm gonna leave it to black. All right, but we need to group it under color, and I'm gonna sort the priority of 0. This will control the fog color, the first fog color. All right, I'm gonna connect the RGB to A over here, and from this one I'm just gonna duplicate and create color number 2. All right, I'm gonna give something like this, maybe a little bit of orange. All right, and my color number 2 again will be group color, and the store priority will be 1. It's going to connect to B over here. All right, so we have our colors over here. Let me just align everything, and they're interpolating in this lerp. And what left for us is we need our alpha in order for us to start blending it. Let me just clean up this a little bit. So from this subtract, we need to create a smooth step and use our fog mask. So I'm going to search for smooth step, which is a mathematical operation. And for the min, I'm going to use this blend. For the max, I'm going to leave to 1. And for the value, I'm going to use our mask. So we're going to start blending and smooth stepping between our boundaries of our fog and using this blend. And this will go into our alpha in the lerp. All right, and from here, we're pretty much good to go and connect it to our color. So I'm gonna connect it to my albedo, and I'm gonna save. So this is pretty much about our volumetric fog material. Let's go and test it out. All right, so we've created our volumetric fog, and let's start in testing it out. The first thing is you need to create a cube. This is for the shape that you want the fog to be. So I want this blocky shape, maybe something like this. And right now I need to create a material instance. So from my volumetric fog, right click, create material instance, mi volumetric fog. All right, and I'm gonna drag and drop it onto my cube. In order for you to work this fog to start working like that, you need to select your exponential height fog, go to the volume and click on volumetric fog. If I turn this off, nothing will happen and you're gonna say why this is not working. You need to check the volumetric fog in your exponential height fog, all right? And from here, I have this collision. And what I need to do is to select the cube and search for collision preset. And I'm gonna choose no collision, this one. When I start playing, now I can go into my fog. As you can see over here, we have pretty nice fog. Let's start tweaking this up, all right? I'm just gonna make it a little bigger, like that. Maybe this is a desert storm, like it looks like a desert storm, all right? Let's start tweaking up the parameters, all right? The first cover will control our fog at the bottom. So when you start tweaking it up, you can see that we are controlling the bottom of the fog. And I'm just gonna put it a little bit like a little darker like that. The second one will control our top. So let's make it like a little dusty storm. Then we can start blending. This is the blending between the two colors, all right? You want the second color to dominate. You want the first color. So from here, you can control the blend. The next step is texture. Here you can put different textures. Right now I have only this one, but you can create variety in Photoshop. And the next is opacity. How do you want this fog to be opaque or not to be opaque, all right? Let's say we want it to be pretty opaque. Then is the texture size, the size of our texture. So when you put 10, you start seeing this very dense texture over here. When you put 1, you have this wall rest texture, for example, 0.5, 0.2. You can create this pretty nice dusty effect like that, all right? Then it comes to animation speed. If I put 1, see, like a sandstorm. If I put 0.2, a slow moving. The next is the height. Of course, we can control the height. You can make it 2. You can make it, let's say, 3. You can put it all the way to 1, to 0. This will be determining the height of the cube that you're placing. So the bigger the geometry, the more height you can put, all right? So if I put 1, see how it looks over here. If I put 4, let's try 3, 2. I'm gonna use the height of 1.5, let's say, and I'm gonna use the texture size of 1, just for the sake of this. Then we go to the hardness. We control how hard is the edges of our fog. You can create it pretty hard. It will cover all the cube, or you can make it a little bit softer, right? Like that, okay? The next cool thing is that when you create a light, let's say a point light, and when you move your point light over here and start tweaking the point light intensity, so if I start tweaking the intensity, you can see how in real time this lightning is affecting our fog, all right? So this is something that is pretty cool. This light also affects our fog. So you can create a lot of amazing things using this volumetric fog. So when I play this, let's go into the fog. You can see pretty cool looking fog, pretty good. And you can see how it affects the bounce, all right? And we have this nice sandstorm. So this is pretty much how you can create those things like the volumetric fog, and you can use the cards over there in order for you to create different kinds of patterns of fogs and use them in your games. It will be pretty handy. All right, guys, so this is how you can create the volumetric fog shader. And before I end up this video, I want to let you know that I've created a Blueprints Masterclass for Unreal Engine 5. It is available right now on Udemy. So if you want to expand your knowledge and not just only create art pieces in Unreal Engine 5, but create some characters, create some game logic, my course is the perfect solution from beginners to intermediate Unreal Engine 5 users. The course itself is 15 hours long and it has all the foundation that you need to kickstart your blueprint knowledge in Unreal Engine 5. So if you want to keep evolving yourself beyond just creating art in Unreal Engine 5, enroll now. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to support me and get access to all my files, also to the auto material that I've created previously, join my Patreon page for $4.99, and with your pledge you're supporting me to keep creating amazing videos like this. Each one of you can make a big difference by supporting my channel so I can keep making those videos. Thank you guys for watching this video. Happy game development. I'm out.